Now that we have configured the failover cluster, the next process would be ensuring that we host a highly available application on the cluster, and that's the whole purpose. The purpose is if one node or if a service on a particular node goes down, we ensure that the application is still running on the other node, right? So in this example, I'm going to take a file server as an example of a highly available application on the cluster. So to do this, I'm going to add the file server role on this computer, that is node 2, and I'm going to do the same thing on node 1. So let me select one of my nodes here. And as you already know that this also can be done through PowerShell. So I'm going to click on the drop down here and select file server, and that's it. So my file server role gets installed out here, and please ensure that you do it on both the nodes. So on the Failover Cluster Manager console, I'm going to click on roles, and as stated before, there is no role configured. So what we need to do is we need to click on the right hand side of the screen on the actions pane. We need to click here which says configure role. Click next on the first page, and now you need to select the role that you need to make highly available. Now in my situation, I have decided to ensure that the file server role is highly available, and to that end I have installed the file server role on both the nodes. So I'm going to select file server, and once I select it, I move on to the next step, and I get two options. You want to use file server for general use, or do you want to use a scale out file server? Now a scale out file server is going to be your choice in case you would like to host Hyper-V cluster. Now in our situation, it's going to be very simple, where we are going to use a file storage. So hence I'm going to select file server for general use and click next on to this, and on this page it asks me what name do you want to give this file server application, right? And this name is going to be known as the VCO, something known as the virtual computer object, and once again this is going to be registered as a kind of a computer account in Active Directory. So let me but simply give this something like FS, that's file server cluster, and that's the name by which your end users are going to access this application. It's not going to be by the name as node 1 or node 2. They're going to access it by this name. And for this end, let me also specify an IP address that I'm not using anywhere in my environment. So let me go for 90, and on the next page I need to select the storage for this application. So as you can see, it shows me the disk, the cluster disk that we saw before, the 10 GB drive that we have allocated for the file server cluster, and we select this disk because this is a free disk. Please note it will show you only free disk out here. So this is my free disk that I have. I select the storage and I click on next, and I get a confirmation on the same on what I'm trying to do, and on the next screen it's going to configure high availability for the file server cluster role. So that's done. I click on finish, and I can see that my file server cluster is now up and running, and it's currently on node 2. And in order to test or validate, what I can do is I can just right click, I can move it, select node, and let's say I move it to node 1 just to do a test failover from one node to the other. And as we can see, it's now moving the file server resource from node 2 to node 1. And this shows me that I have successfully managed to configure a failover cluster on Windows Server 2016 server. And that completes the exercise on failover clusters.